Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode, of JavaScript Jabber. I am Steve Edwards, the host with the face for radio and the voice for being in mind, but I'm still your host, mostly because nobody else doesn't want to do it and Chuck's not here. But with me on the panel today, we have Mr. AJ O'Neill. How you coming, AJ? Or how you doing? Excuse me.
Yo. I'm coming at you live from a very wonderful day, it would seem. Not too hot, not too cold. Good times here in the shed. Uneventful. That's nice.
Right. Yeah, I'm coming from a much cooler Portland. It's like fall just hit. Wham! All of a sudden this week. And it's not even the 21st, which really bugs the snot out of me. I prefer my long, nice summers with warmth, but that's okay. And our special guest, Mr. Tomek Sułkowski. How you doing, Tomek?
Good. Hi guys. Hello everyone. I'm good. Coming at you from also nicely weathered Poland. It's evening here, but I'm like super hyped and ready to chat with you.
Right. So how warm is it there? We always have to talk about warmth because Dan's always complaining about how hot it is in Tel Aviv, but he's not here to do that today. So.
Let me just turn on my units converter. So it's 64 of your warmth unit.
So you're about 20? Between 15 and 20 Celsius?
Yeah, 18 to 20.
Dang, I'm getting good at that. Okay.
Nice.
Right. Okay, so now that we've established weather patterns in our appropriate vicinities, let's talk about what we're going to talk about, which is interactive coding tutorials. And I'll leave it at that and let Tomek talk from here about these tutorials and making good tutorials, right?
Hopefully. The thing is that it's up to the tutorials creator then. But we try to take care of all the obstacles before creating the actual tutorial. So, yeah. So, I guess we can start with the like just tutorial part because I think this has been on the programming scene for like forever, pretty much. It's actually there's like this one cool talk about 4 quadrants of documentation, and it's like how-to guides, walkthroughs, the like reference, like API reference, and tutorials, right? So it's nothing new on one hand. On the second hand, we have the interactive part, which I think like that's the exciting thing that hasn't existed even like several years ago. So yeah.
Okay, so tutorials kit.dev. This is the starting point. If anybody wants to go look at this while we're talking, I'll put the link here on the screen. So give us the rundown on what it is, what it's built on, the tech stack, and then how to use it.
Cool. So I think the best introduction to what it is and what it can do is kind of a little bit of history, and it starts with this cool dude called Rich Harris. I don't know if you know him.
Yes, we just talked to him within the past month. I think we talked to Rich about SvelteKit. I think it's version 5 coming out. So yeah, we've talked to Rich very recently.
Here you go. So Rich is a very great like communicator and educates about Svelte and SvelteKits like really perfectly. Super inspiration. And when they launched Svelte initially, they already had an interactive tutorial, which for Svelte being like a front-end library, it was doable, let's say. So they built this Svelte tutorial, and from the feedback from the community, it seems like that was one of the big reasons why Svelte got so popular so quickly, and why it's so easy to get into Svelte, because you can just like look up a topic or a syntax element of Svelte and have an actual page with an exercise and explanation and everything. So this learning experience is really cool. But then, as you mentioned, SvelteKit. When SvelteKit came along, it was more tricky to make a tutorial like this in the browser, right? So thankfully, in the meantime, Stackblitz, where I come from, built web containers. And web containers, very short recap, are like super small OS in a browser. So basically, you have a file system, you have a Git integration, you can run Node, most importantly for us, and for first couple of years, it was working exclusively on stackblitz.com. So it was only the engine for stackblitz.com projects that you can launch with Node New or at the other Stackblitz starters. But when SvelteKit was closing to be the 1.0 version, Rich wanted to have a tutorial for SvelteKit as well. So he reached out to us so we can create some kind of API to use web containers with tutorials. So that's how Web Containers API came about. And so basically, that was our design partner for creating Web Containers API and SvelteKit tutorial. As you can see right now, when you go to SvelteKit tutorial, you see like booting web containers. That's what is built on behind the scenes and why the backend aspects of SvelteKit work in the tutorial.
So real quick, I'll jump in and say that we talked to Eric Simons from Stackblitz about web containers in JavaScript Jabber episode 487. So if you want to hear more about the web containers and how they work, the big issue is being able to run Node in the browser, basically. That's 3 years ago. So June 8 of 2021 was when that came out. We'll put link in the show notes, and I'll put it here on the screen if you want to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, it's, just to add to that, like we're constantly working on web containers, so primarily on the Node part because we are keeping up with the Node releases. But since then, we've also released an initial experimental version of Python support and PHP, and we can support SQLite as well. So it's still work in progress, supporting more and more interesting stuff.
Okay, so let me go back there. As a PHP developer, you said you're basically with the web containers, you can run PHP in the browser?
But yes, it relies on the WASM version of PHP. So as long as something has a WASM binary available for the browser, we can hook it up to web containers.
I had no idea. Very cool. Cool.
To be honest, it's like it's very early. So, for example, one thing is supporting the language, and the other is supporting the package manager for it. It has its own, you have to re-implement it usually because there is never a WASM version of a package manager. So, while you can, for example, run Python, the pip doesn't work yet until we have enough requests for it, and then we'll start working on it. But yep, that's still developing story. Okay,
sorry to interrupt, but moving on.
All right, so after SvelteKit tutorial, we had several other projects using Web Container API for other stuff, sometimes even their own playgrounds, or there is an interesting project that allows you to, for example, check the size and contents of a package by actually using web containers to download it in the browser and experiment on them. And to just look into what it downloaded. But also this in the last year, we've seen some new tutorials coming to light. So I think the biggest one was angular.dev. With Angular official documentation, they released a new version of the documentation last year. And also they included an interactive tutorial that was a big part of this launch. And very similar to what Rich did with SvelteKit, they built it with Web Containers API. And in the meantime, Anthony Fu, that you might know from, I don't know, like tons of projects, right?
He's a big Vue guy too.
Yeah, of course. So he started working on a Nuxt tutorial. The same concept. If you look at, even now, if you look at SvelteKit and Angular tutorial, it's a very similar structure visually. So Nuxt is very similar as well. As far as I know, he finished the engine part, and now they're working on the content. So when we looked at, actually, you can watch Anthony coding it because he released like the full, like he live coded most of it on YouTube. There is a whole playlist. And you can see Anthony, who's like really great developer, of course. It took him, I think, like several dozen days to do it, to build the engine. So it's definitely not an obvious type of app. So when we looked at what SvelteKit and Nuxt and Angular team did, and realized that it's a very like similar functionality, very similar structure, we realized that we should build a library for it. So kind of you can think of it like a storybook project, right? When Storybook came along, suddenly like all component libraries are using Storybook to document their components, no matter if this is React or Vue or Svelte or Angular. But you have the same kind of features, the same layout. And this is now available with Tutorial Kit, basically. So yeah, you can start playing with it by just running npm create tutorial, and you have tutorial in like 20 seconds flat.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just looking at the demo. So what's so we talked about web containers. Now, beforehand you mentioned Astro. So what are the different tools at the different layers in this kit?
Okay, so when you look at any of these interactive tutorials, especially ones built with a tutorial kit now, you will see a content part and interactive part. So usually on the left, you have a description of a topic, you have an explanation, and this is like a rich text, so like formatted text. And on the right side, you have the editor, you have the live preview that updates whenever a user edits stuff, and even you have an interactive terminal. That right interactive part is basically built with web containers. The editor uses Code Mirror, but we wanted to use something for the content part, for the like descriptions, for the like different pages, something that is like really fast and universally loved by developers, so other developers can build on top of Tutorial Kit. So that's for like the main content part. We've picked Astro. So this is basically when you build or deploy a Tutorial Kit project, it's basically like deploying any other static Astro site. So it's a bunch of static pages with web containers sprinkled on top of it.
All right, just for those who might not be familiar with Astro, we've had Fred Schott on here. It's been a while. I think it was Astro 1 or Astro 2. when it came out. But Astro is basically this tool that seems to have taken the static site world by storm. And I've used it myself for a site. It's really pretty slick. The general idea of Astro is that you can have a static site with pre-built everything server rendered basically like your old school HTML, but you can throw islands of interactivity in there, whether it's a Vue component, a React component, a Svelte component. And I know that since I used it last, they've added a number of new features and capabilities to it. So it's definitely one of the more popular tools in that world.
Yeah, and it's super like extremely fast as well, and they constantly innovate on top of it as well. So we're using, I think we might have been one of the first bigger projects to use Astro collections on that scale. So the lessons are actually like the collections in Astro. But best to see it if you go to demo.tutorialkit.dev.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how quickly it loads, because again,
yeah, I'm there right now. It gives you a little a way to go. So is this is one that was built with it, and it's just walking you through one that was built with it, right? It's not, you're not actually building a tutorial yourself.
No. We were looking into that, but it was like too much of an inception. If you wanted to build a tutorial inside of tutorial, the space is quite limited for that.
Okay, so this is just showing you. Okay, yeah, it's just doing some real basic stuff like styling forms is what the tutorial is.
I created just a demo tutorial as the very first implementation, as I was also testing in the library.
Okay, all right, cool. So just, excuse me, you'd mentioned some of the people that have used this. Can you point to any, or I don't know if you guys have any links on the tutorial kit side of ones that have been completed, or any public instances of tutorials that have used this tool?
I'll have to look at, I think one of the coolest one is by one of actually a tutorial kit developers as well, Ari Perke, who you might know as VTest core team, one of the VTest main contributors. So he is currently also the primary maintainer of Astro, and he built Vite plugin tutorial. So if you wanted to build, let me see if I can quickly find it. If you wanted to build a Vite plugin, I don't know where to start. This tutorial will be great.
Yeah, see, Vue Mastery has a course on it, but I don't think that's it. No.
I don't think that's it. Oh, actually, you might go to tutorial kit repository, which I will.
Oh, on GitHub?
Yes. And there in the discussion part, we have several people sharing the tutorial. Oh, okay. I think this is a nice one. So you will see if you're in the discussion part, you can go to our first tutorial using Tutorial Kit, and this one is the Remote framework. So different thing than what I've talked about. But I think this is the most extensive tutorial we've seen so far. So you can see like several cool features, like you have like in snippets of code on the documentation, on the description side, and tons of actually like chapters and lessons. Yeah, definitely the biggest one that I've seen.
Okay, yeah, I've got the link up there as a banner right now so that you can
great.
You can see that. So, okay, so if I want to use this, let's say I want to build a tutorial. This is something that's all hosted on Stackblitz by
Nope.
you guys, or is this self-hosted, or how exactly does that work if I want to create my own?
So basically you have two steps if you want to create it. First is run npm create tutorial, and that scaffolds the projects like any other like npm create stuff. Couple of questions, mostly about like, do you want Git? Do you want which package manager do you want in your like for the tutorial Git project? And then, because it's ultimately an Astro site, you can run npm run build, and that creates the static part, and you can host it anywhere, Netlify, Vercel, you name it.
Like GitHub Pages or something like that as well?
I think GitHub Pages has a one gotcha at this point, because it's a like super technical thing, but that's a great question, because for the web container part, you need to set specific headers, and GitHub Pages don't allow you to set them. We're working on creating a proxy for that, so you won't have to even think about it. But right now, it's only for the hostings that allow you to set custom headers for your site. So like Cloudflare, Netlify, Vercel, all the common ones.
Okay, so obviously, since you work for Stackblitz, you can also create this on Stackblitz as it recommends in the installation instructions.
Yes. Additionally, so right now, I like to do it actually locally for most cases, because we also have a very cool extension that works on VS Code. And we only support VS Code in a very experimental version of our editor so far. So if you want to build a tutorial Git project, I would highly recommend you to use that extension, because it allows you to traverse the project very quickly. It allows you to create new lessons by just right mouse click new lesson, and you don't have to create manually like the folder structure. And there are probably like 20 different settings you can use to customize each lesson. So because it's in an markdown or MDX file, you set them up in front matter. So the extension supports IntelliSense for that front matter, actually. So if you want to, configure the lesson, you can, with the extension, it will, do the things that normally only be possible with like TypeScript or something, with, autocomplete, warning about the wrong types and things like that. So honestly, we're not pushing Stackblitz very hard on this. I think the biggest value we have here, or that we want to provide, is that when you have tutorial Git project, every demo that you have, every project that runs on each lesson has an open in Stackblitz button, which creates that lesson. So if you go to any of these lessons, for example, on the RAML tutorial, on the top right, you'll see like the Stackblitz bolt.
Yes.
And it will create that in Stackblitz. Open that specific exercise in Stackblitz, which is really cool, because it's while lesson creator might want for you to go from like point A to point B within each exercise, you might actually really like this code base and want to explore it further, maybe save it for later. So in that case, you just open it as Stackblitz and make it a Stackblitz project, and you can just build it as any typical Stackblitz playground.
So now, so I'm just walking through the instructions, and it's sort of like Nuxt in terms you're using file-based routing in Neiman for the display of titles and where all your different files go. And so there's a pretty strict it's pretty opinionated, right, and how it has to work and be named.
Yeah, very,
so
very
which makes sense, right? You don't want to have to guess where everybody's putting their code to run a tutorial.
Yeah, we do have a lot of customization, but mostly on the specific lesson level. So do you want a terminal? Even like what kind of commands do you allow your user to run the terminal, so they don't, go into some like crazy states if they run like anything with web container that could be detrimental to the learning experience. But yeah, the file structure is that. So you put everything in a content, then you have tutorial parts. Tutorial can have several parts. In the tutorial part, you have a chapter and then a lesson. And then in each lesson, you have a markdown file that describes the lesson that has the lesson description. And then the files folder, which includes the app that needs to run as that demo, as that interactive part of a lesson. So that's like very basic structure, but when you start building with it, very soon it would, because that lesson needs to be, the files for a lesson need to be an actual working project. It needs to be something that you could run locally by running npm install, npm run start, right? So if you imagine creating all that for each lesson, and you have 30 lessons, you'd have like 30 copies of the same project with maybe, slight change in 2 or 3 files. So we've also accounted for that, and you can also utilize like templates folder, where you put your general structure of that code base that you demo. So, for example, if you want to do, let's say it's a Vite project that you want to build upon, so you can generate a Vite code base, basic Vite code base in the tutorial kits template folder. And then for each lesson, you can only define the files that are in the source folder for your demo app. So it's not that much, repeatable code.
Okay, so one thing we talked a little bit earlier about the backends that are supported. So how extensive can this be in terms of front end only versus full stack versus whatever? You mentioned SQLite, right? So obviously you can run Node as a backend. PHP is iffy. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I wouldn't probably, for early days, I wouldn't try it yet with with tools set outside of Node ecosystem. But Node itself is pretty well supported. Basically, to try it before you get invested and install and scaffold the project, if it works on Stackblitz.com, it will also be compatible with Tutorial Kit. But I've seen already I've seen a tutorial on one of our ORMs using SQLite, and at least one Next.js tutorial. So that's kind of the area that we cover.
Okay, so I like to work primarily in Laravel and Vue with, sometimes with inertia, depending on, depending on the project. It sounds like that might be a bit much at this point, just because they're PHP based.
Oh yeah. Until we can support, Composer and stuff like that, it's okay. It's the future.
So you could do, obviously Nux is using it, right? So you could do Nux since that's node based. Any front end. What about, and I haven't played with Stackblitz since Eric came on this 3 years ago. If you want to do something that involves an external API, if you want to use Contentful, for example, or some of the other ones. There's one I used to use that completely, I can't remember now, but something like that. Can you do that where you would have to set up an external API and and connect with that in your tutorial, or is that outside the scope?
It should work. I think the challenges are on the on the edges of that. So, for example, in practice, if this is an API that you need like to set private keys for, we don't support these kind of things, like storing the environment variables and things like that. But besides that, I think that should work. It's just, in practice, there will be probably problems with rate limiting these if you if you can't use like tokens and things like that.
Right.
But besides that, yeah, this should work. Also, it works in a very, let's say, hardcore scenarios. If you have like private package manager, or if you want to run it behind a firewall, behind like corporate VPNs, that's also supported. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would. I guess if you were doing something that involved data, maybe you could just include it with like a JSON file that has your data and sort of mock an API type of thing, if that's what you're worried about. Because this is obviously, Vite, plugins, but this is going to be more of a display. You can, these type of tutorials are for how you're displaying stuff on a screen and not necessarily data pulling. Sorry, yeah. I'm more of a back end guy than that. So that's where my brain goes.
I think that's how I would probably do it. Also, it's because it's Astro project, you can do everything that Astro can. So even you can add separate pages for that are not in that tutorial UI, and you can also like you said, like host the JSON files for specific lessons and things like that. So that's probably, I think, optimal if you want, especially like a lot of people hitting that API endpoint.
Okay. So now where is this? Sorry, I haven't looked. Where is this in terms of releases? You're still in, so you're pre 1.0. It looks like you're 0.2, 0.3 as of the latest release.
Yeah, there is we are still a bit shy to release the 1.0 version, but
that's always the scary thing to decide, right? When is it good enough to release 1.0?
Yeah, I remember when React was like pre 1.0 for like several years, right? And then they jumped into 14. Anyways, we do have a roadmap to 1.0. And it's not that crazy, actually. So I think we'll be hitting it in a couple of months. But we're also super careful about those breaking changes that we're making right now. And I think the only ones we've made really were pretty sweet because they like removed a lot of boilerplate in several places. But yeah, so.
Yeah, you can see in the GitHub repo, there is a roadmap to 1.0 issue.
Yeah,
issue 144. So I just put the link in there. So that's if you want to follow the development and see how close they're getting to a 1.0, this is what you can subscribe to.
Exactly, and for when we talk about this, like a huge shout out to Ari, who is leading the open source aspect of it, super responsive in all the issues. So yeah, he's doing a great job on making it a truly visible open source project.
So going back to editors, you mentioned that you have the VS Code extension. So if I use something like one of the JetBrains IDEs, WebStorm, PHP Storm, if I'm doing it in there, I'm probably not going to have all of the interactivity that I would in VS Code with the extension.
Yeah, the extension really. So when you create the lesson, you need to create a folder and you need to create the file, at least the content MD file. So the annoying part when you do it by hand is that copying that same structure, you'd have to like have the like empty folder with not empty folder, but like a placeholder for template folder. Let's call it like this, with a file that you create, that you copy every time you want to create a lesson. I think in WebStorm and things like that, you should be able to create some kind of templates to help. With that element. I think the biggest drawback or thing that you don't get with the extension when not using extension is that IntelliSense, because so in practice you'll have to see our documentation a bit more, but also I think in reality, once you create like your second or third lesson, you have the settings usually dialed in, so you don't have to touch them that much. So that shouldn't be that annoying, let's say. I think the extension really helps initially, plus that thing with creating, with having a template for the lesson. Oh, one thing to say about the settings, I think it's why it's also helpful and not that annoying not to have this IntelliSense, is that, for example, one thing that you might want to set is a default file that a student can see in the editor. Let's say that you have like a source folder displayed and like 5 files: index HTML, index CSS, like app view, and something like this. And you want in basically every lesson in the chapter to always focus on the app.view file. In that case, you can set this on every lesson, in every lesson in its content MD file, or you can set it on the chapter level just once, and it's inherited for every lesson. So this way, if this is really repeatable logic, you just set it once, and it's just applied to a whole part of the tutorial, or even on the whole tutorial.
Okay, yeah, that's nice, not having to repeat the boilerplate all the time.
Yeah,
something that devs can appreciate, I'm sure. All right, anything else about this tool that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, so I think the main point is that this is open source, and so that comes like both ways. If you have any questions or requests, visit our issues, but if you also want to contribute, we have some good first issues, or you can come up with your own issue and contribute to it. We'll, as I said, we're very open for that. And yeah, I think this will be a very cool thing that will become I wouldn't say a standard, but something to expect from every bigger library, so that you can have, you can either read the docs, the more static version of the docs, or go through the tutorial without having even to install anything. And one thing also, I've seen this, I think it's also a kind of like a forcing element. When you build a tutorial like that, you end up with tons of instantly available demos. So as a DevRel or a developer advocate, having that kind of tutorial always online, it's very cool to be able to just go there and live demo this part or that part of the framework, because you have everything already set up. So I think it's useful both for people who go and just want to test drive a library or framework, and for the more advanced people who are just constantly returning to the same thing to experiment with a concept. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking through the issues list right now. As of today, there's 38 open, and you can see some of the different tags that they've created. As you mentioned, there's one tag that's a good first issue. So one of those little simple things that would be good for somebody who wants to dive in and tackle something easy and get a win. And then there's bugs. I like the PR welcome one.
Is it for the bug? Oh, nice.
There's one that is bug, good first issue, PR welcome.
Oh, okay. I can see. Understandable. But notice that most of the issues are actually feature requests or enhancements. So
enhancements, right?
Yeah. So it's pretty stable.
One Windows specific one that I'm seeing, help wanted on one of them. So yeah, there's looks like there's plenty of options and opportunities to jump in and get involved if this is something you want to be involved with.
Yeah, it's all this activity is pretty much from the last month, right? So it's quite active.
Yeah, for sure. AJ, you got any questions or anything?
No, just listening this time.
Wow, that's really weird. We'll just leave that at that. So
that's not the only time. You may not have been on other times, but sometimes it's just somebody else's domain.
Right. Yeah, it's like me when we're talking about Go or Rust or something like that for you. Okay. Unless you got anything else, Tomek, we'll move on to picks. Anything else you want to cover?
I'm good.
All right. So picks are the part of the show where we get to talk about anything we want to talk about within reason. Of course, that's approved by the FCC. Could be tech, could be non-tech, could be a book, could be a movie. Chuck always does games because he's a big board game kind of guy. I will start off with the dad jokes of the week. This is always the high point of any episode that I'm on. So let me get set up here real quick. Got to get my drum player in place here. So, okay. So question, why was root beer the best drink on the Titanic? Because root beer floats, right? Obviously they didn't have enough root beer because it didn't float.
Too soon.
It's only been 112 years. You're right. Got to wait till at least 200. Cosmetic surgery used to be such a taboo subject, but now you talk about Botox and nobody raises an eyebrow.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then,
please don't mutilate your face. Please don't mutilate your face. No one has ever said, look at that person's Botox. Don't they look amazing? No one's ever said that.
Yeah, it's definitely not moving, shall we say. And then finally, how does a burger introduce his significant other? It says meat patty. And then I do have another pick, and this fits in with the dad jokes of the week. Babylon Bee had a really great post or article, and the title of it is Dad Jokes Panned by Critics. And it's basically a story about how dad's telling his dad joke, and his kids are like, yeah, really? Sort of like my house, I'll give you a couple lines from it. In a scathing 750-word review, fellow dad joke critic Erica Matthews, age 10, pointed out that while the joke was technically funny, it was just a repackaged version of a joke told previously. Right? Asked how he was taking the negative reviews, Phil appeared to shrug it off, says, hey, that's just showbiz. At publishing time, the critics had retracted their statements after being offered ice cream for dessert. So anyway, we'll put the link for there in the notes. But I was very appreciative of that one, since it's one of those kinds. It's like somebody was living with me at home, And I'll put it for a banner here just for everybody to see. Those are my picks for the week. AJ, what do you got for us?
Well, first of all, last week, if you remember, I complained that I was coming at you live from a busted solenoid. And so I'm going to pick Rocky Mountain ATV because they had the part that I needed for my Honda 4Trax. And turned out that I haven't actually installed it yet because what the immediate solution was whack the existing one with a wrench. I don't know how that didn't fix itself when I was going over the hills.
That's almost like duct tape, right?
Yeah. But anyway, Rocky Mountain ATV, if you're in Utah, it's a no-brainer. Well, I mean, I guess unless you're 4 hours away from them. But and anywhere else in the country, I don't know. They're a good company. I like them. So if you got toys, then check out Rocky Mountain ATV. It's actually Rocky Mountain ATV MC. I sometimes forget the MC because I'm not as much into the dirt bikes. But
motorcycle. I thought it was Master of Ceremonies or something. Okay.
no, motocross ATV.
Motocross. Right. That would make sense.
Next thing I'm going to pick is there's a repo that I've created called PG Essentials. And let me actually throw these links in as I'm talking about them here in the comments. And it has Postgres scripts, both for setting up Postgres and for using Postgres. And the key thing about it is that it has a script to create a remote group and to create users in that remote group, which basically that's what Heroku does, right? Like Heroku just creates a remote group, creates users in the remote group, and you get access to the database. And it's something that's built into Postgres. You don't have to have any fancy API stuff on top of it. So for the rare folks that need to have tenanted Postgres, these scripts may not do exactly what you need to do. They do exactly what I need to do, but they'll definitely give you a head start in terms of, well, I don't know. Maybe nowadays with GPT, maybe you could just ask GPT and maybe it'd spit out the config without a problem. I don't know. But it took me at the time that I first set it up and I was reviewing them recently for another project, but at the time I first set them up, it's not just several hours, it's a few years in terms of like I learned a little bit then, I learned a little bit later, and I kind of added some stuff to some scripts, and I finally published it as a repo because I've just been sitting. It's like every time I need the script, I go copy it from the machine that has it, and that of course is not a winning strategy. So that and then two more quick things. I think SSH now has an include directive. Apparently this happened a few years ago, but then, there's lag time on apt-get and, everything else. But now your operating system should have an include directive. So now you can have in your SSH config an include //.sh/config.d/*, which is something that I have wanted for a long time because, especially doing lots of client work, I want to be able to segment off, okay, these directives are for this client systems, these directives are for this client systems, etc. And just trying to organize things all in a single file has been painful. And I'm so glad that now include exists and is widely deployed. Again, it's kind of old news, but it's new in the sense that you probably haven't been using it. And if you did know about it as one of the first ones to know about it, unless you were on OpenBSD, it was probably another 2 or 3 years before your operating system supported it, and you may not have found out in that time. And then last thing is DeepSeek Coder V2. This is a mixture of experts model, so similar to O1, that performs in benchmarks slightly better or slightly worse than GPT-4o. So if you want to go grab Olama and try that out, they have a nice 131 gigabyte model, which I have not been able to try yet. I tried to run it on my Mac. It turns out I think the whole thing has to fit in memory. I only have 64 gigs of RAM, so I'm going to try it on my server that has 256 gigs of RAM, but no GPUs. So we'll see how that works out. But they also have one that I did try out that's just a normal like 8 gigabyte model for mere mortals. And no conclusion on how great it is or isn't, but I hadn't heard of it before. I just heard about it. So I thought I'd spread the wealth. And then, of course, if you want to install Olama quick and easy on Windows, Mac, and Linux, there's the Webby link for installing Olama.
Right, and I have 3 picks actually. So one is component-party.dev, which is a really cool website that shows you basically each of the like basic concept of every UI library known to man, like Vue, React, Svelte, Lit, Ember, Solid, Alpine, things like that. And it just like, okay, I know how to do it in Angular. I know this concept. How do you do it in Svelte again? And you just you have this super quick reference. You can just select each framework that you're interested in, and it shows you like how you do styling, how you do slots, and things like that. So
does it have a reference for JavaScript as well, or is it only for frameworks?
Well, in the end, it's all JavaScript. No, it's only for frameworks. I know.
That's too bad, considering we have template literals and DOM events and
yeah, but
all of those
I think
primitives exist.
I think it's mostly about the ideas around components specifically. So like lifecycle, and so maybe like web components could be there in that sense, but they're not.
I want. You still have a lifecycle in JavaScript.
True.
Like all the things that the modern frameworks do have been built into the browser at this point. I don't know if there's anything left outstanding except for include HTML, which if you want to go join that debate on the standards committee, please do, because they are convinced that this is not a problem.
Okay. I might just join the debate.
I'll give you the
all right. Cool. The second pick is Icones. If you can spell, I don't know how to actually pronounce it, but it's icones.js.org. It's a project by, again, Anthony Fu, that allows you to browse like dozens on dozens of just icon libraries, and just with a single click copy it as a SVG snippet or Vue component or whatever you wish, or even a PNG file. So it's a website, I have it installed as a PWA app, so it's quickly on hand. I think it literally it probably says somewhere, but I think it might have just millions of icons. So really cool when you prototype something or you need an illustration for your presentation, things like that. And speaking of presentations, the third pick will be vitconf.org. It's a conference that Stackblitz organizes with a Vite core team every year. This year it comes to you at October 3rd and 4th. It's an interesting formula because while all talks are pre-recorded and then run on the one day, and then immediately run again for the other time zones, so everyone can tune in and watch it. And what's cool is that because all speakers already delivered the talks, they oftentimes visit the chat and actually talk with people who are watching the talks in real time. So it's pretty much more collaborative even than offline conference. So it's free as well. So we already have, I think, almost 30K people registered. So it will be huge. There'll be a lot of interesting announcements and knowledge sharing around JavaScript ecosystem in general, because almost everything now is built on Vite. From Stackblitz, we will have a huge announcement as well. So yeah, you can be first to hear it on October 3rd.
You heard it here first. Huge announcement from Stackblitz at ViteConf.
True.
All right. Is that all your picks?
Yep.
I dropped the link for the component party in the comments. If you want to drop any of the others, please do so.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Alrighty. So before we go, Tomek, if people want to follow Stackblitz and follow you and everything we've talked about today, where are the best places to do that?
Yeah, at Stackblitz on Twitter is quite active. I'm actually the person that mostly posts there. I like to, besides just, spreading Stackblitz features and announcing Stackblitz announcements, I do share a lot of tips around specific techniques, like general CSS stuff, browser features, and things like that. So at Stackblitz on Twitter, and at Salco, SULCO, that's my personal Twitter account, so you can connect with me there as well.
All righty. Well, thank you for coming on, Tomek, and talking about how to make better tutorials. It's something I could use myself. With that, we will wrap all this up. If you want to get at least 5 dad jokes a week, you can follow me at Wonder95 on Twitter. AJ, are you still cool AJ86? I lose track of your Twitter handles.
That, and it's good. It's good because no one needs to follow me. But if you want to follow me for my non-spicy takes, meaning stuff that's focused on things that are more professional, _beyond code. That would be
beyond code.
Yeah, but if you wanna hear lots of things that you don't want to hear and be offended, cool AJ6. Yeah. Poor choice of name. It was for before I was jaded, back when I was laid back and chill.
All right. Alrighty. So with that, we will wrap up this episode of JavaScript Jabber. Thanks everybody for listening /watching /paying attention. And we'll talk at you next time.